Hello there, welcome to another edition of Matt's Chats. This is where I sit and talk to people in and around the whisky industry in a series of short videos and kind of get a bit sort of under the skin of the whisky industry a bit more. And I'm delighted to be here today with Raymond Davidson, the founder of Glencairn Crystal, and actually here at Glencairn Crystal as well. So thank you for having me, Raymond.
I'm glad you could make it.
And if you could just start just by telling us, you know, how you founded Glencairn.
Okay. I was recruited to set up a new division for another whisky, a crystal company, and which is no longer in existence. But at the time, my main focus was to call on the whisky industry, trying to encourage them to package their premium whiskies and rare whiskies into a crystal decanter. And it wasn't easy. They all thought it sounded nice, but no one bought into it right away and then even then when
how long ago was that?
43, 44 years ago.
Right.
And then there were certain criteria that the whisky companies found it was essential to them, and things like vacuity, fill levels, lead leaching, all sorts of things that were seals, etc., which the crystal company didn't care about, because all of the crystal houses, probably still to this day, are manufacturing for retail. So all these things didn't matter to the consumer in retail. But I had to address them, and it was tasking at the beginning to get the manufacturers to realise if they wanted this business, they had to address these issues, and that's where it started. And initially, because that was taking a bit of time, a lot of corporate stuff was important to me. So we called on companies, and I called on companies who would just buy crystal for gifting and so on, like football clubs or and things like that. But the biggest change in the company, and what took us from there to there, was that decanter over there. It was a QE2. They wanted 5,000 of those decanters manufactured, and that's a top of the range decanter. And it was filled with Auchentoshan 12-year-old. So with the link there with Morrison Bowmore, as it was at the time. So that was a good thing. And then eventually the companies did come on board, mainly the smaller companies initially, because the big boys were still concerned about case volume. But they're now with us, and they're now asking for us to produce these things that you see here behind you.
Because obviously it's a very different time, 40 odd years ago to now. The price of whiskey and the premiumisation of whiskey is very different too.
Oh, absolutely.
To that time.
And at that time, malt whiskey wasn't in demand. When I started drinking 100 years ago in a bar, I'd go in and there would be no malt whiskey in the bar. It was just everyone's drinking blends. It's only, and that's what was fortuitous for us when I come up with the Glencairn glass. That's when malt whiskey was just starting to take off. So that was a bit of good luck as well, because although
right place, right time.
I designed the glass 40 years ago, but never did anything with it.
Because this is obviously what most people would know Glencairn for, this sort of particular style of glass.
That's right.
So how did it come about?
Well, right at the beginning, as I say, about 40 years ago, I designed that, but it lay in the factory for 20 years. And Paul, my oldest number one son, found it and came through and said, "What's the story with this, Dad?" And I told him. And the reason it came about, I've always been a whiskey drinker most of my adult life. I'd go into a bar and I'd choose a whiskey, and I'd say to the barman, "Would you mind putting it into a wine glass, please?" And it was just a habit. And then I thought,
so instead of like a tumbler or something
right.
that they would serve it in normally, yes.
Because I always like to nose my whiskey before I would drink it. And then I thought, it's crazy, I've got a crystal business, I should do something about this. So I decided I would tackle the project, and I started off by addressing the shape of the bowl, which was, I wanted to emulate what the master blenders were using in the labs. So that was the Capita sherry glass. And but I opened the bowl, the mouth of the bowl rather, and widened the actual bowl itself to make it a more practical consuming product. And then I personally don't feel comfortable in a bar drinking from a glass that's got a stem. So I took the stem away and married it to this sort of thistle-shaped, more robust thing. Because bear in mind, I was thinking, this is for the bars. It's not for the professionals, it's for the bars. And it has to be attractive for them to buy into it. And it's really to encourage consumers to nose their whiskey before they drink it, rather than picking up a tumbler and throwing it away.
Yeah, to get the most out of the whiskey.
That's right.
Yeah.
To appreciate all the characteristics that you've got in that vessel.
And how did it sort of grow to what it is today? Because obviously this is now the glass that most people think of when they're sampling whiskey, or
thankfully, yes. It wasn't an easy job. I mean, the boys did a great job. Paul in particular was going around. I mean, I spoke to but after Paul was found it, and he was going in to see Richard Patterson that day from White Mackay, and he enthused about it, and I then decided, okay, I'll go and see another 4 master blenders and get their opinion, and they all thought it was a good concept, because there was a glass for champagne, glass for brandy. There was a need for a definitive glass for whiskey, and so the master blenders bought into the concept. I was wondering, will the marketing people buy into it? But I remember we launched it at Whisky Alive 2001, and I remember Sukhinder Singh of the Whisky Exchange, who I'd never met before. He came up to me and said it was worthwhile coming to this show just for that glass. So that was encouraging.
Yeah, so you got a lot of endorsement.
Yes.
Sort of very early on. I guess from master blenders, like you were saying, they saw a relationship between the type of glasses that they're analysing their samples with, but on a more sort of consumer level.
Commercial basis,
yeah,
yes.
Commercial basis, yeah. So can you just describe, particularly the sort of weighted base and a little bit more about sort of the shape and kind of how that helps with the whiskey?
Well, the fact that it's based on the Sherry Capita tells me that this is going to work. If it works for the master blenders, it's going to work for the consumer, if we can get the consumer to buy into it. Because initially, as John Hansel said in Whisky of Malt Advocate, said it's a really unusual thing to drink my whiskey out of in a bar. But he said he tried it and it warmed to it, and it eventually worked for him. So it had to be attractive. That was important. All the capability of analysing what's in the glass was important, but it had to be attractive. People don't buy into things if they're not attractive.
Yeah, and of course what you can do that's very clever, you can get like branding actually put on the glass as well.
Yes.
So
that's
you can personalise it, or you can put your brand on it, or whatever it is. So I guess that's why it's just sort of exploded and is now the glass that most people consider as the whiskey.
Well, I think so, that's right. In fact, there's not a whiskey company in Scotland we don't supply, and they invariably get it branded. And of course, they're taking it out into the marketplace in the world and using it to market their own brands of whiskey. Yeah. And of course, that's helping us, and it's worked. Yeah. It's worked.
Yeah, it's one of the great success stories, isn't it? For your company that you founded like all those years ago. But what people don't realise, obviously you've got the glass, that everyone sort of knows you for. You know, it's even called the Glencairn glass. It's got its own sort of definition, but people don't realise that you actually do all these different decanters for these premium whiskies now. And you know, as you were saying, that was sort of the basis of your business to start with.
That's what we started.
And so can you just sort of tell us a little bit, you know, maybe about some of your favourite sort of decanters or projects that you've worked on that have really kind of...
The best person to tell you about all of these is Scott, who's the new product development director. And when there's a new product comes in, or a whisky company approaches us and said, we're going to bottle a 70-year-old whisky, we'd like it in something special, and they have their ideas, and we help them to develop their ideas and finalise it. And we've done so many for so many companies that your best bet would be to have a wee look, shoot the camera around some of this stuff.
Yes.
And it goes,
yeah, I think I'll do that afterwards, just so people can see, you know, because literally this whole room is filled with different decanters and glassware. So you know, it's...
Oh, we get people we've dealt with for decades, but have never come to the factory.
Yeah.
They come in and they walk into this showroom and they go, "Oh my God, I didn't know you did all this."
Yeah.
So
yeah, I guess that's the thing. You know, people, you know, aren't aware. They think you maybe just do the glass, but
many do.
Sitting
yes.
here, it's amazing. You know, all these sort of familiar sort of names and bottles, and I guess that's another thing. The way the whiskey industry has changed, you know, from the old days, you know, 40 or 50 years ago, where people would just use their regular bottle but put a different label on for, say, a 30 or 40-year-old. Now, of course, with prices going up, you have to have something of this calibre.
That's right. And the people who do have aged whiskies, 60, 70-year-old whiskies, they see the need to put it into a more appealing package. Because I suppose if you're paying thousands of pounds for a bottle, you're looking for something like that.
Yeah.
Thankfully.
Yeah, thankfully for you. But that's great. Thank you so much for having this chat, Raymond. It's been so insightful about, you know, how you set the company up, how you develop the glass, and these other projects that you're working on. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And great to talk to you. Thanks, Raymond.
Really enjoyed that.
Thanks.